All right, welcome into the Five Guys on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. We got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. We're going to give you a break from the heat.
We
Not
need
really,
it.
it's actually nice outside. Yeah, we need it. If you want to talk about them, there's a lot of content on here. None of it's good. 39 to 18 third quarter will do that to you. So again, we're gonna leave you guys be with that. We're gonna talk about, oh my God, we're gonna turn for comfort and hope to the Miami Dolphins. No, we're not really gonna do that. But we'll talk Panthers another day because that's probably Panthers and Canes, and I know you do Canes a lot, so that's why we don't do it here. Any of that would be more hopeful than what we saw from the Heat in that third quarter last night. So we're gonna get out of that space right now. Check all that out. Also, we need to consider we do this show a lot at 3:05. I mean, today we're doing it at 1:02 or something like that. Should we change the name of the show to the 3:05 guys?
Maybe that's a good idea. The 305 guys. I like that. Why didn't I think
I don't
of that?
know why
Or
we
why
didn't
didn't you think of it
before.
months ago?
I don't know because we've been doing the show now for a couple of months, at least like 3 months
Yeah.
and 4 months, and during that period of time, we tend to try to do the show on 5. Mostly, I think it started this way because I tend to arrive a little late because I'm running from somewhere. So you give me this 5-minute cushion.
That is
Technically, it should be at the 5-minute mark because we're everything in our network, except 3 yards per carry is pretty much 5 reasons Canes. I mean, they do 6 rings Canes, but 6 ring Canes, but the concept is 5 reasons Canes, and we of course 5 on the floor, etc. And so yeah, we've just sort of leaned into this doing it at the 5, and then sometimes we do it at 3:05, and I'm like, I don't know, 5 guys, 3:05 guys, 3:05. I don't live in 3:05, but unfortunately, I have to go there a lot. I live in 954, but it is what it is. And I grew up in 561, but it is what it is. It should be some kind of a consideration here to maybe move it to that time. But anyway, we're not doing that yet. And by the way, you know what the code for PrizePicks is? It's 5. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Again, PrizePicks is legal in the state of Florida, so you can jump on. And this is honestly the single best time of the year to do it. You got NFL, you got college football, you got NHL, you got NBA, you got the World Series. Like that, I mean, literally, play anything on prizepicks.com. And again, you get $50 to play right away on your initial $5 deposit. So again, go to prizepicks.com, use the code FIVE. All right, so let's get to it. The other big news this week, other than the Heat opening and Miami playing FSU and Messi's playing at home and just all kinds of stuff going on. And Panthers are starting to get some healthy bodies back. The other thing is that Tua's coming back, and I don't really know how to feel about this. I did a video for Autograph. I when we talked about this, I was like, okay, the worst case scenario is that he has to come back to save the season, and now here we are, and he has to come back to save the season. I really wish we were wrong about everything about this team. I don't know. Are you? Give me an emotion, Alex. How do you feel about his return?
I'm uneasy about it for a couple of different reasons. I know obviously his teammates and his coaches, of course, as they should be, are super supportive. I mean, Tyreek Hill revealed like he almost cried when he found out Tua is coming back. That's also going to help his numbers because, in case you guys haven't noticed, Miami's
too, yeah.
Yeah, Miami's offense has averaged 10 points per game during Tua's absence, which is pretty remarkable for all the playmakers that they have. But okay, so the hole has been dug so deep to this point, 2-4. Now it's kind of a weird year where they're technically, I think only one game in the loss column outside of playoff position in the AFC, which seems crazy. So you could say there still is technically hope that they could end up making the playoffs. The chasm in the division is falling deeper because Buffalo's 5-2 now and the Dolphins are 2-4. So there seems to be kind of a widening gap in the AFC East, but the Dolphins are not completely out of the playoff hunt. I'll be honest though, Ethan, just, based on what we've seen over the past, few years, I'm still super uneasy about Tua's health. And, something that something that really caught my attention. I think it was this morning that this came out. Obviously I cover the Canes, the Hurricanes for Locked On Canes. I also do the Locked On ACC show, so I cover ACC football very closely. And I see this headline that Grayson McCall, who's the former NC State quarterback, this is a college guy who has retired now due to concussions that he suffered. And then I think about my, beloved Miami Dolphins quarterback, who's probably suffered more concussions than Grayson McCall is trying to give it another go after all he's been through. So I'm still uneasy about his health. It's definitely, at the same time, it's his decision, to make, to come back. I'm not a doctor, so he's been cleared. So if everybody's comfortable with this, it is what it is. I'm just going to be holding my breath until the next time, because we've seen multiple times the head injuries and the fencing position and stuff like that, which is frightening. And then the other part of it is, obviously this is going to make the team more exciting. They're not going to be averaging 10 points per game anymore. At the same time, I know that there's been this message out there that Mike McDaniel's even been, there's like, don't just assume that Tua's going to come back and be the savior for the season, because they have other issues beyond the quarterback, including, let's not forget, before Tua got injured in the Buffalo game, that was late in the game. They were already getting demolished before he got injured in that specific football game. So it's not like you automatically plug QB1 back in and this turns into an 11-win team. It's not automatic that way. So we'll see.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, they weren't playing well, and I actually think the fact that they weren't playing well and he was struggling, although I don't think 2 of the 3 interceptions were his fault necessarily, I think that led to what happened. I think indirectly. He was trying to make a play. They were way behind. He's trying to make a play, and he's competitive. Look, these guys are stubborn. Like, that's the thing. Like, they are stubborn to get to the level that they got to, and particularly Tua, with having to overcome the hip injury and the doubts and everything else along those lines, and a coach who didn't want him. They are. That's the thing. He's like, that's why he said this week, he's like, I'm going to take the risk. And it's not anybody else's decision to make. It's his life. It's his family. I don't like when people jump in. It just seems like they're just doing it for content. A lot of them, they don't really care about him personally. But I do think it's reasonable for us to talk about it, but I don't think it's reasonable for us to tell him what to do. I think those are 2 different things. And but what I don't like about the whole thing, is, yes, I'm again, other guys get cleared quicker than him, it seems. Probably could have played earlier. But it does feel like, I'm not saying the Dolphins are rushing him back, because they're not. But it does feel like it's being framed, not by them, but maybe by the fans a little bit, as, okay, now he's going to fix things. And I don't know. I mean, beyond the health, I don't know how sharp he's going to be. And this offense has kind of gone off the rails. Like, and I know, there are some clips that are shown, and our guys are very good at doing this, and where Huntley had Hill and Waddle available, but he just checks it down, or he just runs because he's afraid to make the throw. And I get it. Like, the guy hasn't been in the system. This is Greer's fault. This is Greer's fault. Like, he had. I mean, he cut Mike White. They kept Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson was not the answer even before he got hurt. They got to get Huntley off someone else's practice squad. Make the trade before the season. Okay, it's like, this is so now you're in this spot, and you've got guys trying to make plays, and now other players are out of rhythm. I mean, Waddle is like 6 years. How many weeks? It was 6 weeks into this. He's got like 1 game over 45 yards. Like, this is so far it's a lost season for a lot of these guys. And now it's like, okay, Tua, boom, we're going to be fine. They're not. I don't think. Now, they're not playing a great team, and I do think that gives them a little bit of an opportunity here, but they've also lost games against teams that, when we looked at the schedule before the year, were like, those were likely wins. The Tennessee game, the Indianapolis game, and they weren't, and they're going to be playing catch up. So I just think the whole thing is unfortunate. It was predictable. I think that he has to take the ball out of Tua's hands a little bit and run the ball. We don't know if he's going to do that. And now I just think, for the first time, and I really like Mike, and I like what he brings, but he looks lost to me. He looks. You know what I mean? Like, now we're running fullback dives all the time. Like, he didn't use that at all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it. And he's not obnoxious like Gase was about this stuff, and he's not blaming other people, and I respect that. But the results are not better right now. And so, Alex, on the other side is, I want to get to what you think is a reasonable prediction for him on Sunday. Let's get into that. Before we do, I want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Reasonable prediction is that in South Florida, we're at sea level. You may have flooding at times. If you have a leak, that's a real problem. You may have mold. It's not a reflection on you. You just need to clean it up. Reach out to our friends Michael, Robert, and their team based in Boca Raton. They'll take you through the entire process. They'll work with you with the insurance company, the mold remediation, all of that stuff, the rebuild. They can handle it for you, the water mitigation, the entire process. I've learned all of these words as I've learned Michael and Robert. And again, based in Boca, they service the entire Tri-County area. They got more than 100 5-star reviews on Google. So take their word for it if you won't take mine. Again, WCUFL.com. That's WCUFL.com. And that's water cleanup of Florida. So what are we looking at? Give me a prediction line. I haven't looked on Prize Picks yet. Let me see.
I just did actually. 245.5 yards is Tua's over under or more or less number, as they call it. 245.5, which, and honestly, if we can get a game where a Dolphins quarterback throws for around 250 plus yards, that would be a breath of fresh air after what we've seen for the past several weeks. I think it's reasonable that, they're not going up against the toughest team in the world. Dolphins are 3.5-point favorites at home against Arizona. McDaniel did say that, it's kind of funny because at times I felt like they didn't taper down the playbook enough for the other quarterbacks. But then McDaniel's talking about actually streamlining the playbook now for Tua in his return, where it's like, I mean, the guy, he hasn't been gone for that long, but McDaniel, he made this comment about how, like, your first time back on the bike, you're not going to do the Tour de France was what he said. So he's going to simplify the playbook a little bit for Tua. This is something where you talked about, Ethan, that had this been another player, who doesn't have Tua's history, would have been cleared a lot faster. Tua did mention that he has been, in his words, symptom-free since the day after the concussion. Obviously the amount of official practice work he's been able to do is very limited, but I'm sure he's staying in physical shape. He just hasn't really been able to officially throw with his receivers up until this week. So there might be a little bit of rust there. So, I think, oftentimes, when a healthy Tua steps out there, your expectation is 300 plus yards, right? That's the usual expectation for him. I'm going to go with somewhere between 250 and 275. I'm going to say maybe I think he's going to throw an interception. I think there's going to be a little bit. He might be eager to go out there and maybe make a few too many things happen, but I think he's going to throw probably 2 touchdowns, an interception, 260 yards, something like that. I think the Dolphins will probably win a somewhat sloppy game, but I think they'll get back in the win column this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, can I say 22 of 33, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick? Like, I think at this point, you just want to take general competence. And again, I'm looking at his projections. I mean, he had 338 against Jacksonville. He accumulated that pretty easily. I didn't even think he played that well in the game. And then Buffalo, and Buffalo, he wasn't good. I mean, again, 2 of them, he's throwing to receivers that should never been on the team. One was to Chosen, right? And one was to, I can't remember the other guy's name. I mean, this is where we're at. Again, I just, everything we said before the season, I hate that we were right. Backup quarterback is going to be a problem. Okay. It cost them at least 2 games. The kicker situation may have cost them the last game. The offensive line. Okay. McDaniel's play calling in terms of being too pass heavy and not adjusted too late, kind of went over the other edge. All of this is, and then wide receiver 3, which we talked about. Like, Berrios just went on IR, and it's like, I hate to say, I hope the guy gets healthy, but it's like, he wasn't providing anything. Okay, now we get fewer fair catches. Like, I don't like none of this stuff. I just think, I have not been a Fire Greer guy. I have not, because I think that some of his drafts have been good. He's found guys like Javon Holland and others like that. I think he's got to go. I think it's time. If this stuff was not obvious and foreseeable, it would be different. But it was. All of it was. And I'm just at the point now where it's like, all right, let's take a look at this in a different way. And I know, look, people are going to say this to me about the Heat. They're going to say, well, we told you, they ran it back. And I know they have different. But, I mean, we saw a disengaged Jimmy Butler last night who scored 4 fewer points than Thomas Bryant. Like, and they looked small again, and they looked, and I just it is the definition of insanity. It's like you get on the right track, Alex, with a program like the Panthers are, and it's just like you just start feeding the pieces you feed just fit, and you just make it work. You lose, you lose a Duclair and you pick up Evan Rodriguez and he ends up scoring 4 goals in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like it's just when you have a machine running like that, like the Panthers do right now, the Heat need a tune-up a little bit. I think the Dolphins need a completely new machine. Like I need a new machine, just restart.
And I agree with you with what you said about Chris Greer, because it's the thing. It's like, I mean, he doesn't own the team. Like he
Right.
and the owner
Right.
have been the only constants that have been around for so long that the repeated, and it's not always been dysfunctional, because there have been some years when things have been reasonably okay, but for the most part the Dolphins have not functioned properly during the Greer Stephen Ross era. And obviously Stephen Ross is not going to fire himself. But the other constant that's been around for multiple head coaches, multiple disappointing seasons, has been Greer. So I think there's probably time for a change at the top there.
Yeah, I do think I think it's time, and I think if it doesn't happen this season, particularly if they miss the playoffs, which the playoffs are very achievable in this conference, and it hasn't run away from them. There's not as many good teams as we expected. And even the really good teams are not great. I don't even think the Chiefs are great. They're just they know how to win. They just figure it out at the end. They know how to win. They're not what they were. But anyway, I just look. I hope Tua gets through the game. It will make them watchable again. That's at least, and Hill and Waddle can eat a little bit, and maybe we can see some of what we expected. But it's like I said, like now they're in a position where he cannot. He has to be perfect now, and it's just like when I kept talking about 2002 when Jay came back after the 4 games, and I don't think Jay's was as good as Tua is, and they weren't as reliant on him because that offense was more Ricky Williams based, right? But he came back and then he won 2 games, and it was like, okay, all right, we're back. We're 9-5, and then they lost 2 games. They lost to Minnesota and New England, and that was it. And it's just there's no margin for error now, and you're putting a guy who already was given very little margin for error less. I'm dubious on it, but I hope I'm wrong because I don't I don't know if it's safe to turn to the Heat right now. Alex, we appreciate you. We'll be back on Tuesday. Check out the rest of the content on the channel, and lots of Heat stuff, lots of Kane stuff, some Panther stuff. It's all on here somewhere. And Messi, of course, our group at Messi and Company. So check all that out. Have a good one, everybody.